Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. How are you doing today?
Good
Okay,
evening.
so hello, good evening, Imabong. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, hello, Chimerie. I hope I got that correctly. Hello, Mr. Dennis. It's a nice one having us this evening. Okay, so quickly we're going to go right into today's discussion. Welcome to week 4 here at JIPCC. This is the fourth quarter for this I think third quarter rather for this year 2024, and we're here at the IEP session in the check property session where we'll be discussing sports and of course the business of sports and how law regulates sports. My name is Goslab Kamaluni, and it's an absolute honor to be here with us for this session. It's going to be a simply amazing session. So, mentees, brief rules I want us to uphold throughout this session is the fact that I'm one who is big on mentee participation. So, as we have our mentors speak to us, ensure that you are also participating. I want you to keep the chat box very, very busy. Engage the chat box. Let them know that we're here. When they are done speaking, do well to actually give kudos to them for a great job and things they've said. You can always ask live questions. I encourage live questions. In the IP session, it's always amazing when you ask live questions. It goes a long way in helping the class go really well. I think if you listen to that and work together, we'll have a phenomenal session. And when it comes to IP and sports, there's so much money in sports right now. And being an IP practitioner who understands sports, you can make good money in the future. That's right. So, having said that, my name is Ghazal Kamalani once more, and I'll be your moderator for today's session on IP law, talking about sports and business law. Okay, so let's go right into today's session. But quick announcement, please be informed that Jiipcc has done something phenomenal. Yes, we have our free legal clinic. Isn't it mind blowing? If you're a creative, if you're an entertainer, if you're an athlete, if you're an innovator, if you're into startup or a startup per se, you can take serious advantage of this opportunity. What does it entail? Get 20 minutes free consultation with a professional here at Jiipcc. Not just Jiipcc, it's one program that goes around the world. So imagine get to meet a professional for 20 minutes. When you speak to a professional for 10 minutes, is a whole lot of benefits to you. Now, 20 minutes, that's mind-blowing. So please tell everyone, if you have who is a creative, entertainer, athlete, innovator, a startup that should take so much opportunity right now, take up the space, take up this opportunity to get free advice, free consultation. Listen, it's not easy to get free consultation for 20 minutes, free consultation. And of course, you can always submit your contracts for review if you take advantage of this particular offer given by Jiipcc. Jiipcc, thank you so much. I think that's a really, really great one. That's a really great one. Okay, so quickly, we're going to go into today's discussion, and we'll start off with our amazing mentors. We have some seriously good mentors here who will be taking us through today's session. Some of them I think you've met before. For the ones you've met before, I will not need to read out the entire profile. I'll just probably say a few things about them and then read out the ones we've not met before for this quarter. Yes, indeed, Imaboni, very, 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 very innovative one. Thank you. Okay, so today we're having Nirvana talk. I've been under one of Nirvana's sessions, and she's one brilliantly amazing lady. And it's really an honor to have her again with us for this quarter. Please, you can always check her through on LinkedIn and get to know more about her on the JIPCC social media handles, because we always have our profile over there. So for today, we're having Nirvana talk as one of our mentors for today. Moving on, please. Okay, of course, we're having the master of IP. That's Mr. Max Ikongwe. He'll be with us for this quarter. Today, for today's session, talking about sports, Mr. Max is one person who has shown himself as prolific in the IP space here in Nigeria and, of course, beyond. So Mr. Max is going to be with us today, and we cannot wait to enjoy from the wealth of wisdom he's going to give into us. Up next, we have another amazing mentor. Okay, so we're going to be having her for the first time this session. Now, Miss Rita is someone who is amazing. I can beat my chest to say that I set up Jiipcc because of her. She's a phenomenal woman. So I'll just go through her profile because it's a very, very long, intimidating one. So I'll pick out a few things from there. So Rita Anwiri Chinda is a distinguished lecturer at River State University and an expert in intellectual property consulting. She currently serves as an IP consultant for IGA Nigeria Limited, providing valuable guidance on commercializing and, of course, monetizing Lagos State's culture, tourism, and heritage. In her role as a heritage consultant for the Lagos State government, she offers legal advice on leveraging the state's intangible assets. Of course, she holds a master's degree in IP and IT, which she earned with honors from the University of Derby in the United Kingdom. Listen, she's done a whole lot of amazing stuff. Not to forget, she has her podcast called IP Series. I've listened to that and she's doing a great job with that. She gives so much knowledge and wisdom in her IP series. You want to listen to that IP series on Spotify, on Amazon, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, and other platforms. You will get her through. She has over 128 episodes of really mind-blowing and inspiring knowledge she gives. So through her career, Rita has actively contributed to various organizations and initiatives. Notably, she played a vital role in drafting the River State ICT policy as a valued member of the team. She has also served as a judge for the prestigious Adavis allow essay competition on privacy data protection for 5 consecutive years from 2019 to 2023.
Harry!
That's
Please come.
okay. So she's a recognized expert throughout Nigeria, Africa, and the world. Listen, she's done a great job. She was recently featured on BBC, that's Gist Nigeria program on Channels TV. Ms. Rita is phenomenal. She's the chief convener of the Intellectual Property Society of Nigeria, as IPSN. Alongside her team, they have successfully organized 2 virtual conferences that have taken place so far and celebrated 2 World Intellectual Property Day. Presently, she is the second vice chair of the MBA section on Business Law, Sports, Entertainment, and Media Committee. Listen, I could go on and on and on about the amazing person that is Miss Rita Anwiri Chinda. Her profile is going to be on all our social media handles. You can go and check her out. And I'm proud to say she's my cheerleader, one person who has given me so much push in this IP space. For today, you're going to be enjoying the wealth of wisdom I've also been enjoying. So please, we're having Miss Anwiri Rita Chinda with us today. Moving on, we have another interesting mentor who will be joining us for today's session. That's right. I think she's already with us in the session already. That's Chiamaka Anagu. I hope I got that correctly. Chiamaka Anagu is a senior associate at Sports House Legal Practice. She is the head intellectual property and dispute resolution practice area of the firm. Chiamaka specializes in IP law and its intersection with sports, entertainment, and the media. She has represented Nigeria footballers at FIFA Dispute Resolution Chamber, Players Status Committee, and Court of Arbitration for Sports on contracts, transfers, and employment disputes. She represents both professional and amateur footballers, intermediaries, and clubs. She has spoken and participated in a number of sports conferences, seminars, and of course, webinars. So for today, we're having Chiamaka with us for today's session. Welcome, ma'am. It's an honor having you with us. I think we still have another mentor. Okay, I believe you've all met him. He was with us the last session I moderated. He met us for that session. That Mr. Fola Renua Aluko. Yes, he's one man who, after listening to him the last time, I had to go back to refresh my memory on a lot of things he said. And also about him, he's a prolific IP specialist here in Nigeria, and it's been an amazing time having him with us. Okay, another new mentor for today we're going to be having is Farai Razano. Yes, please. Farai Razano has an LLB and LLM in environmental law from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. He also has an LLM in sports law and practice from the De Montfort University. Farai specializes primarily in sports and entertainment law. He has acted for various clients, including individual sports persons, clubs, sports associations, or federations, and production houses in the film or television industry. He has appeared and acted for various parties before, especially sports dispute resolution tribunals, including the Court of Arbitration for Sports. Farai is the chairperson of the Constitutional Committee of Athletics Club South Africa. Of Athletics South Africa. He's also a panelist on the FIFA Pro Bono Council panel and serves as an editorial board member of Law in Sports Africa Subdivision. Farai has also acted as a prosecutor for Boxing South Africa and the South African Institute of Drug-Free Sports. Mr. Farai, it will be an amazing time having you with us today, and of course, to enjoy from your wealth of knowledge. Welcome to Jiipcc for this quarter. And if you do not know this man, that means you're not doing your research in the IP space. That's none other than Mr. Sand Mbakalu himself. And today's also opportunity to have him as one of our mentors. He's done a great job in the IP space, a great job. This quarter, we've had him before, and to be a great honor to have him again with us. What an amazing array of mentors for this evening session. So mentees, if you're ready, let's get to eat and get to have a great time. I'll just confirm how many of our mentors are with us this evening before we kick off with today's class, because I want us to do something quickly before the class commences. Okay, I can confirm that we have Chemaka with us here. I can confirm we have Maxi Combe with us. Okay, the more I confirm, more. Okay, I think I see Rita already with us here, so that's really good. That's really good. So I think we can quickly go into hearing from our mentors, and then we'll come back for our picture time. Having said that, I want to open the floor with Chiamaka. Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon. Welcome to Jiipcc for this quarter. So in the next, let's say 15 minutes, let's get to hear from you on more, let's say, an intro to today's topics. We're talking about sports, business, and of course, law. Welcome, and the floor is yours for the next 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. So good evening and welcome, everyone. Before you go off, I want to just have an idea of how today's session is going to go. Yeah, so that I know whether the topics are divided amongst the mentors, or do I just go in to do the introduction?
Okay, every mentor has say something about everything. There was no division whatsoever.
Okay.
Just have fun, speak about it, give the mentees your wealth of knowledge. But for this beginning, let's just have, say, a 15 minutes wrap up of everything, and then we're going to have time for them to come back to ask questions. And I think after their presentations, we can have more time to speak broadly on today's topic.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
Thanks. I have slides, but 15 minutes. I will try. I will try. Like you already said, I would love for the chats to be very interactive, so that I know that I'm not speaking to myself. So I'll try to share my screen and then try to run through the slides.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know why the slides are not coming up, but I'll just go right into it. So Introduction to Sports Law and Business. So what is sports law? Let me see. Okay. So sports law and introduction to sports business and the law. So yeah. So what is, so sorry about this. I'm just trying to, you know. Okay. Sorry, can you see my screen?
No, we can't
Not
currently.
yet, ma'am. No.
Not yet, ma'am.
Okay, so let me just go on without it. Yeah, so what is sports law? So generally, sports law is a specialized area of legal practice that deals with legal issues in the sports industry. So it's not an area of law like criminal law or, company law. So it's just an intersection of various legal disciplines and areas that deal with issues that come up in the sports industry. So we're talking about like contract law, employment law, intellectual property law, labor law, criminal law, tort law, etc. So there are just a lot of areas, legal practice areas that that come together to make up what we call the sports law. So I'll just go into the legal issues. So maybe I would try to send my slides to Jiipcc to share with everyone because it's quite comprehensive while I try to run through in the next 15 minutes. Okay. So sports, like we know, is a very heavily regulated area. And this whole regulation basically is just about trying to advance the industry and also to try to give everybody like sorry, let me be distracted. To try to give everyone like for fairness and to have clean sports. That's basically why sports is heavily regulated. So what are the key legal issues in sports? So I'll just have them in broad areas and then we can break them down. So we'll talk about player contracts and negotiations. We talk about intellectual property rights, which of course most of us here already know. We talk about liability and risk management. Then we talk about dispute resolution. So when it comes to player contracts, at least I'm sure that everyone on this call has maybe a passing interest or a major interest in sports. So we kind of know that players have contracts, and of course, these contracts are negotiated. Those of us that are heavily following football know that the transfer window just closed last month. And for every transfer window, of course, there will be a lot of negotiations, there will be a lot of contract signing, there's a lot of movement, player transfers. And so what usually happens in these areas, player contracts are generally like every employment contract. It's just that in the area of sports, they are a bit different than your regular employment contracts. So usually player contracts are usually between the player and the clubs. And then of course, clubs with the leagues, and then leagues with the member association with FIFA generally. So that's kind of how it goes. So I'll just talk about a bit of some of the clauses that you find in a typical player contract. So generally, leagues have what we call templates of player contracts that can now be tailored to each club can now tailor their own to their own specific needs. So of course, in a player contract, you find the duration, length of the contract, you find duties and obligations, you find salary and compensation, you find termination clauses, and then the general boilerplate contract clauses. And then you also have endorsements and image rights. So to talk a bit on endorsements and image rights. So usually player contracts, individual players have the right to enter into their own endorsements. And of course, they have their own brands as well, but they cannot clash with the endorsements and branding of the clubs that they are playing for. So some of these things are usually sorted out in the player contract. So during a negotiation process, you usually have a lot of agent activities, agent representation, and then of course, lawyers get busy here because there's a lot of back and forth just to protect players trying to protect their own interests and clubs trying to protect their own interests. So there's a lot of legal activity going on here. So I would go straight on to intellectual property rights. So I haven't can we hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
Okay, because I'm trying to, see that the chat is that people are listening, and then I'm not just speaking to myself. So yeah, like I said, a bit of intellectual property. We know that they're usually, so basically here I'll be talking about trademarks. There are also copyrights in sports, but I'll focus here on trademarks. So for here, we'll be talking about branding for players and, branding for clubs. And like I already mentioned, usually during the player negotiations of player contracts, we have each party trying to protect their own interest and trying as much as possible to give a leeway for how much they can do per time. And then just for an example, when it comes to branding, like because we know that players represent their nations when they're called up and also represent their clubs. So usually what happens is the clubs have a feeling that, they have expended a lot on these players, being that they are playing week in, week out, and they're investing more on their branding than the countries do. So usually, sometimes that brings up issues. I don't know if anyone knows about the Mo Salah case. with the issue of branding that happened between himself / his club and his country. So those are kind of like the issues that come up, because the players want to exploit their name, image, and likeness. The clubs want to exploit the name, image, and likeness. The country also want to exploit this name, image, and likeness. So it's now left for, lawyers and agents to find a way to strike a balance. So what usually happens, and what has happened in the past, is that where a country is trying to use the image or name of the player just to put out that, oh, our country is playing against whichever other country. The rule is that at least you have at least 3 to 4 players on a poster where you're saying, oh, so and so are playing against, these are players representing Nigeria are playing against this other country. So that's just a rule that has been made, So for football, which most of us know about, there are other sports areas as well that we might go into if time allows. But for football, which is common knowledge to most people, the exploitation of name, image, and likeness has, grown over the years because of things like gaming, and things like, this exploitation I've talked about for club and country as well. So our time is running so fast. Okay, so I'll just move on to dispute resolution. I hope we will have enough time for questions so that we can, dive in more to areas that people might really be interested in knowing more about. So when it comes to dispute resolution, of course, in any area that is heavily commercialized and there's so much money, like football, there's over, 500 billion US dollars going in and out of that industry. So we know that, of course, there will be disputes in these areas, dispute between athletes, teams, governing bodies, stakeholders, and the likes. So what usually happens, first, maybe we'll talk about types of disputes that can come up. So we can have what's contractual disputes, that's player contracts, player/club, player/agents, sponsorship agreements, transfer deals. We can have regulatory issues. We can have, like I already said, intellectual property issues. Then, of course, we can have labor disputes, like between player unions and league owners. So, for example, FIFA usually dissuades people from going to regular litigation for any disputes arising in player contracts or things like that. So arbitration and mediation is encouraged, but that does not mean that the jurisdiction of courts are ousted completely. What it does is, because the lifespan of anybody's sporting career is usually very short, it's advised that, alternative dispute resolution is the better way to go, just so that the disputes are resolved very quickly and, whoever it is can go on with their career. So arbitration and mediation, like I already said, is encouraged. And then I want to take it for granted that we know what arbitration and mediation is, but I'll just, mention it for who doesn't know. So arbitration is a binding process where an independent party, who is usually called an arbitrator, or sometimes it could be a tribunal that's consisting of 3 arbitrators, sits over a dispute. In the case of mediation, it's also a binding process, in quotes, because this the bindingness of mediation depends on, who is administering the process. So where a neutral person, a neutral third party, helps parties to reach a mutually agreeable solution to their dispute. Then, the common disputes resolution bodies that we have in sports, and for this instance of football, we have the FIFA tribunals, and then we have the Court of Arbitration for sports. For the FIFA tribunal, they usually handle issues that are international in nature. So their jurisdiction is that at least one of the party is international. So if there is a dispute happening between a Nigerian player and a Nigerian club, FIFA tribunal will not have jurisdiction. But if the dispute is happening between a Nigerian player and an Egypt club, then FIFA can adjudicate on that dispute. So also with their mediation process. So member associations, which are called MAs, are encouraged to have their own national dispute resolution bodies to deal with their own cases internally. That is the cases that can't come to FIFA. And then the FIFA tribunal is like a court of first instance, and an appeal can go to the Court of Arbitration for sports. So that's usually how it goes. But of course, Court of Arbitration for sports can also be a first instance court. But for other areas of sports like athletics and the likes. So I will run quickly just to touch the business side of it. I see that my 15 minutes is almost up, if not up. So I'll just go straight to the business side of this webinar. So generally, the sports industry, like I've already mentioned, there are all these stakeholders, starting from the participants who are the players, to their clubs, to the leagues, to the MAs, Members Association, and then for football is the FIFA, for basketball is FIBA, and different bodies like that for different areas of sports. So in the business of sports, of course, we have an array of stakeholders running from media houses, different companies that use sporting platforms to advertise and, sponsorships and things like that, merchandising. And all these stakeholders come together. So we have sports organizations, like I've already mentioned, FIFA, FIBA. We have the teams and clubs. We have the athletes, both professional and amateur. We have the media broadcasters. Right now, of course, we know that we have the traditional media and the streaming services. We have sponsors and advertisers, and then fans and consumers, which are a very important part and stakeholder of the sports industry and business. So usually, like I've already gone through it over and over, I said it starts from, the participants who are the players, to their clubs, to the leagues, to their member associations, and then to the regulatory body. So that's how it goes. And generally, of course, we know that the impact of sports business, being that a lot of people are drawn to sports because of the participation, the athletes themselves, the community that fans, come together to form, and different things. And sports, as we also know, is a driver of the economy. they create jobs, and there are all these annual or biannual competitions that are had, and there's a lot of followership as well. So it affects the tourism sector, infrastructure development, movement, migration, and a lot of things. So the sports business ecosystem is actually really wide and cuts across a lot of other industries. So I'll just go straight into the business issues that, might come up. Of course, using our Nigerian league, let me just use Nigerian league for an example. We know that, of course, we have for football, we have the Nigerian Professional Football League. We have our clubs playing in the league, but somehow it looks like the clubs we watch on TV and stream online, are growing bigger and much better than our own local clubs. And then it's not because there are no fans interested in those clubs, but it's because of branding and packaging. And like we all know, for your product, for people to want to, key into your product, buy into what you're doing, have a followership, there has to be consistency, there has to be enough branding, there has to be visibility, there has to be transparency. People have to know what is going on there. And then it seems like here, our leagues, we don't really have all those. In the past, people didn't used to know when the leagues is going to start, because what usually happens is they set a date and then they push the date forward and it keeps going like that. And, people lose interest. But there are still some diehard fans that, follow the Premier League, Premier Football League, as we call it here, no matter how they are doing or not. And also on this webinar, I can tell you that the league has also started. For those interested, you can always, search on Google. There's a streaming service for the Nigerian Professional Football League, so that you can follow up if you're interested and stuff like that, at least just, to know what is going on there. And then, of course, if it comes to your city, you can as well go and watch a live match if that's your thing. I know that for people in Lagos, Sporting Lagos has become, very popular because of their branding, visibility, and the attention and the work they are putting into it, just to make people want to come and see live games, follow their progress and all that. So that's a bit of sports business. Then, of course, we have brand development. We have different marketing campaigns and all these areas that I'm mentioning. Of course, we know that disputes can arise in all these areas. Like usually for sports lawyers that are based in Europe and in other continents, the transfer period and things like that are usually like times that sports lawyers get really engaged. But here it hasn't quite developed as much like that. So of course, I follow the Nigerian Professional Football League. Not like I watch all the games, but I just follow what happens. So I know that there's a lot of transfers that has happened in this season. But of course, I haven't heard of any lawyers that have really done any business or representation or negotiations as much. So there isn't a lot of visibility and openness in what happens there. What you just usually see is that, oh, this person has moved from Enyimba to Heartland, or this person has moved from Heartland to Rangers, or things like that. So where, hopefully as it develops and as administration changes, these areas will grow until there will be need. There will be need for a lot of lawyers to work and be busy during transfer windows and things like that, even international transfers. It's important to say at this point that for our example that we're using, that's for football, the disputes that happen in football are not a specific reserve for lawyers. So what happens is that in football, agents are able to represent their players, same as lawyers. So what has happened in the past is that some lawyers, try to become agents so that they can have, more inroad into the area that, they want to be involved in. Because usually, before anybody can give you any disputes, like for the lawyers that are on the call, you know that the person already has to know you, your expertise, competence, and things like that. So usually players are always very close to their agents. And most times what these agents do is that because they already know, a lot of the regulations and rules of sports, they are able to represent their players as much as they can, just using the rules and regulations. It's not like they need the rules of evidence or any other technical thing as much. Yeah, so it's an area that agents also represent players. So it's not a specific reserve for lawyers. That's the point I'm trying to make. So also in sports business, we have event management and hosting. And it's under this area that we can talk about mega events like the World Cup. We can talk about the AFCON. We can talk about the BAL and, similar events like that. So, of course, usually these events, we know that for IP, there's trademark, there's copyright of most of their written work are usually copyrighted. The trademark, they have specific laws for.
Sorry, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Carl, say hello. Please, due to time, I think we need to round off now, so you
Okay,
can
okay,
also.
okay. I'll just round. I'll just
Thank you.
round up. Yeah. So, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, you get the point that I was trying to make.
Yeah,
So,
types of IP that can be found there as well, trademarks and the likes.
okay, yeah. So, like I said, for copyright, all the written works are copyrighted. For trademarks, of course, they're usually IP policies for each of those events to protect them from ambush marketing and things like that. And I'll just end it here, and then I'll try and tackle as much questions as possible so that, 15 minutes was such a short time, but thank you everybody for listening. And
Thank
I
you,
hope
Ma.
it has been engaging and insightful. Yeah.
Thank you, Ma.
Very more than
Thank you,
15
Ma.
minutes. It was really good. Okay, so before we continue to our next mentor, but once again, Chimeka, thank you so much for such expository starts to today's session. So before we move on, please, I'll let all mentees, let's do a quick picture time with our mentors today. Be informed that if some should join us later, we might need to do another one. But for now, let's have a quick picture time quickly. Thank you so much. Please turn on your cameras as we will have our picture time quickly. Thank you so much to all our mentees, even to our mentors. It's been nice to have you with us for this picture time. Do not forget that we're streaming this live on YouTube. And your pictures taken today will be surely put on all our social media handles, and that would not in any way infringe on your right to privacy. If it will, please inform us on time so we know what to do. But aside that, know that we're streaming live on YouTube and it's going to be on YouTube. Thank you so much. So once it's done, I think Mr. Hussein will let me know. Mr. Dennis will let me know once it's done.
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Although we have a lot of mentees who didn't turn on their cameras, please always ensure you do that. It's your proof of being here. It's your proof of life. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. Up next, we have another mentor speak to us, still on the topic for today. I think let me just turn the line on. I don't know if we still have Rita with us today on the session. I think I saw her earlier in this session. Hello, Rita. Good evening. Hello, Rita. Okay, it seems she's no longer with us at the moment. Quickly, we'll just move on to, of course, the Mazi of IP, as I call him. Yes, Mr. Max, good evening, sir. Welcome to today's session on sports and business law, or sports business and law.
Yeah, thank you, God. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear, sir. Good evening, welcome again.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I mean, after that master class by Chiamaka, I think I should apply to Jiipcc to give me a diploma for listening to that alone. I deserve a diploma in sports law. Chiamaka, thanks so much for that very comprehensive overview of sports law. I'll just keep my comments really brief and just focused on one area, which is the issue of ambush marketing. I believe Chiamaka was already headed in that direction, but had to slow down because of time. So one of the major issues is that big sports events, of course, always want to monetize their events and increase their revenue streams as much as possible. So of course, we all know that the Olympics is a long-standing sports event, but if you look back 50 years ago, I mean, what it would take to host the Olympics, it's, I think then, if I remember records, I saw maybe about $75 million and all of that. But now, hosting just one Olympics game, or in terms of the total economic value of one Olympics game, is well over 10 billion US dollars. And that is because, like we mentioned yesterday, IP really is one of the bases to monetize a lot of commercial activity. So IP law, of course, the simplest ways would be from broadcast right, like I mentioned yesterday. Broadcast right, of course, is protected by IP law. That is why the organizers of any sport event can make money from the broadcast of that event, which they would not have been able to make if there was no IP law, that's copyright in existence, giving them the exclusive right to broadcast that sports event. But because copyright gives them the exclusive right to broadcast that event, they can now license that right to third parties in return for money. So I want to, like I mentioned, just speak up briefly about ambush marketing. So ambush marketing essentially is a concept that tries to protect the revenue streams of sport event organizers like the Olympics, the World Cup, and other major sports events. So we all know that when sport events come up, you always see corporate sponsors who would say things like Peak Milk, the energy drink of Super Eagles of Nigeria, or the official sports drink for the Olympic 2024 and all of that. So the idea is that the organizers of sport events, based on their rights in IP law, trademark, and all of that, would give a license to commercial parties to use their sports event to promote their goods. And of course, they take a lot of money, sponsorship money in return. So ambush marketing happens where a third party who doesn't have a binding sponsorship deal with a sports event organizer decides to appropriate the brand of that sports event and pass himself up as one of the sponsors or one of the the people endorsing that sports event. So essentially using the goodwill of that sports event without actually paying for it. So it's a huge issue. So for the Olympics, for instance, has an international treaty called the Nairobi Treaty, which was concluded in 1980 or no 81, I think, to protect what they call the Olympic symbols. So that would be the Olympic logo, the Olympic flag, the Olympic, of course, the word and all of that to stop third parties from using it without having properly entered into an endorsement deal with the International Olympic Committee or with the National Olympic Committee of the various nations. So you see in recent times, the Olympics have been quite bullish on things like simply putting out a tweet congratulating athletes from your own country using, and once that tweet is coming from the account of a corporation. So if I said as a law firm and say Everlaw congratulates the Nigerian Paralympics for winning a gold medal, that, by Olympic standard is considered some form of ambush marketing because I'm indirectly using the Olympics to promote my business. I mean, I have my own views on it, and I think sometimes the Olympics committee maybe goes a little bit too far and they're a little bit too aggressive for a games that is organized, on the basis of international amity and all, and not really a commercial undertaking. Sometimes I think they go a little bit too far in their monetization efforts, but be that as it may be, the law on ambush marketing is relatively clear. So the recent Paris Olympics, for instance, there's this very funny YouTuber who was going into boxing, I think it's called Jiipcc, who seems to annoy a lot of people. He started a line of sports drinks, and without entering into an endorsement deal with Paris 2024 Olympics, he started to promote it. So from what I heard, the US National Olympic Committee is taking him over. It's not, I don't think it's National Olympic Committee, but there's a different name they have in the US for the Olympics committee. They are taking him up, and I heard they are actually suing him for that. So it's an issue, but one of the reasons why I bring up ambush marketing for you is that I've had a case where I've had to advise a client. I mean, it doesn't have to always be a big event, even smaller events, actually. You have the right to, based or even without the special treaty that the Olympics has, on simple IP law alone, you can actually take up people who have not signed endorsement deals, who pass off your event as if they have an affiliation with that event. So simply by using the name of your event, which you should have trademarked, or using the logo of your event, which you should also have trademarked. So it's also a way to advise your clients who do events, to seek IP protection, particularly trademarks early on, to prevent that. So there's also, lastly, an interesting story as well. I believe it was the Sydney Olympics in 2000, where actually the moment the IOC announced that Sydney was going to host the Olympics, somebody went behind and registered, I think Sydney Olympics or something like that, or Sydney 2000 as a trademark in Australia. So it became quite a tug of war between him and the Olympics committee. And I think at that time, Australia had not ratified the Nairobi Convention. So that became some sort of a challenge as well. But for countries that have ratified the Nairobi Convention, they're part of the requirements, part of the obligations that they will not allow anybody to trademark anything that touches on the Olympic properties, including the name, the logo, the flag, and other items that belong exclusively to the Olympics committee. So I'll just bring my comments to a close. And of course, I look forward to listening to the mentees and of course the other mentors as well. Thank you, God's love, and back to you.
Thank you, sir. You're muted. You're muted.
You're muted, Mr. Godslaw.
Okay, thank you. I thought I heard myself over the phone. I didn't know I did not. Okay, once again, thank you so much, Mr. Max. It's been a very nice opening to today's topic. Sports business and law. It's one really, really, really interesting part of IP that I, for one, find really interesting or really mind-blowing, because there's a lot happening in the sports space now. And talk about the Olympics. We just finished the Olympics, and of course, I was taking note of a lot of things about IP that I could find around the Olympics. And the biggest sport in the world, football, that you will see a lot of things that has to do with IP rights. So having to know these rights, usages, and of course, how to manage them is a whole ball game. Okay, I think as more mentors join us this evening, we'll get to welcome them to speak with us. So having said that, we have one group presenting today. So I'll just give the floor to them for 7 minutes so we can have our mentors come back, talk about the presentation, and of course, throw more light. Now they have more time to speak about today's topic, speak on today's topic, and blow us away. And I'm really looking for how for them to talk about how we can identify most of these IP rights in the sports sector. Okay, in the sports sector. Okay, before we have our mentees, I just confirmed that Rita Anwiri Chinda is with us here on the call. Hello, Rita. Good evening. I hope I can have you now. Hello, Rita. Okay, maybe it's a network glitch, but I think to be fixed soon. So while we look forward to that happening, I want to move on to the mentees. So our presenter for today, please, the floor is yours. Kindly make, okay, I think she's unmuted. Okay, okay. I think it's an issue with network because she's,
Hi, good.
okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please, Rita, good evening. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good, looking awesome as usual.
Okay, I want to say a big thank you to Chamaka, who gave us a very robust introduction to sports law and business, and also to my mentor of life, Maxi Combe. Thank you for taking on the ambush marketing of business. I guess for me, I don't really have much to say, but I just to highlight like two topics, which is gambling and gaming law. Because you know that when you're talking about this area, you need to consider three elements that you look out for are the concentration, price, and chance. So you can consider also sports betting, which is a very huge industry. Oh, I'm glitching a bit.
Yes, please. I was about to say
Okay.
that, yes, there's a lot of
Sorry,
glitching.
it's okay. I think I might turn off my video for. Okay, so I started by saying that I was going to talk on two things after I commended Ms. Chiamaka and Max Combe. The first one is on gambling, which also centers on gaming law. And under gambling, we know that sports betting is like a very big thing in Nigeria, even though the laws and the regulations are not so straightforward. But the following that I will list are like the major forms of gambling that are considered to be legal. And the reason I'm talking about is because of
Hello, Rita. Okay, I think it's serious network problem at the moment. So I think it's been an issue with network.
is it better?
No, I think we've lost you again. Your audio, that's it.
Okay, so I guess I'll just start again. I was going to highlight on gambling law and also list other areas of the sports sector that have thriving businesses that we may need to consider in terms of rendering our services. So under the gambling law and / gaming law, the following that I'll be listing are what is legal in Nigeria, and that includes sports betting. You have the lottery, and then you have the casino, gambling, and online gambling. And I was referring participants to clause 15.5 NFL. Of sport, consider the marketing, which is market business of the Yeah, the tourism and hospitality, the girls have been following that follow the Olympics and also the Para Olympics are currently ongoing are saying the benefit of brings
Miss Rita,
so
sorry,
in coming to see your place.
hello, ma. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What was the last thing you heard me say?
Your voice was cracking. We were hearing in between. But it seems to be better now.
Okay, so I had finished talking about the sports betting and the gaming sector, and I cited
Your audio went out again, Ma.
Okay, I think probably there's no, I know now that probably it's a network problem. So I believe she's going to get that fixed, and let's hope it gets better. So for time, I think we'll just start with our mentees so that once she's back, she can continue where she stopped after the mentees, and then we'll move on from there. So if we can have our presenter quickly with us, so you can quickly have your presentation, that would really be nice.
So group 3, please, the group presenter for group 3, please, you can kindly go ahead and share your screen and start your presentation. Unfortunately, we'll not be having group 4's presentation today. I hope to communicate further with the group so that in subsequent work, when they eventually get another opportunity to present, they will be able to do so. So please, the group presenter for group 3, do well to share your screen and start your presentation. Do we have group 3 members on call? Do we have anyone from group 3 on call? Okay. Please, those who are in group 3, please, you can kindly indicate. If we have someone from group 3, please, can you indicate, please? All right. It seems group 3 is not ready for their presentation yet. I think we would be addressing that I'll be addressing that in their group. So please, over to you, Ms. Rita, if you are currently. Okay. Can someone confirm that they can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh,
Yes, I
all
can.
right. So,
Yes,
all
I
right.
can.
So someone was saying that they couldn't hear me. So please, if you can't hear me, please, you can kindly log out and then try to log in again. It's probably a network glitch from your area or from your place. So please, group 3, would like to get your presentation when you guys are ready. But then we'll go over back again to Miss Rita. If you are with us, please, ma, we'd still like to hear from you, so that we can just carry on with class, ma.
Okay, good evening once again, and apologies for the network. But I think I'll just run through my list of other sports business areas that we can consider, which will include sports medicine, tech media, there's marketing, there's also the merchandising, And then we have e-commerce and then sports goods and equipment production. So why there's so much focus on IP in terms of the sport broadcasting, endorsement, sponsorship, images, these areas are like salient areas that also help
Miss Rita, it seems your network is still problematic.
Sorry?
Sorry, we were not hearing you for a while again.
Oh gosh. Can you tell me what was the last thing you heard me say?
If I'm not mistaken, you were trying. Okay, the last thing I heard, you were still trying to reintroduce the gaming law. Yes.
Okay. So with regards to gaming law, one of the major conversations again will be in regards to gambling. And in gambling in Nigeria, you have to be at least 18 years age, but if you're renting in Nigeria, 20 years. There are three basic elements to gamble: that's situation, the price, and the chance. The four gambling or four forms of gambling that are said in Nigeria, and that includes sports betting. We know a lot of companies, such as the Bet King and the rest, and like one of them uses Jiipcc as their ambassador of some sort. Then you have the lottery, you also have casino gambling, and then online gambling. And that aspect of sporting business, not so much conversation about sport is actually there is regards to real estate, um, athletes development, tourism and hospitality, sports medicine, tech and media. Then you have marketing and merchandising, and then e-commerce, and then sports goods and equipment development. That's an area that needs more boosts and probably funding so that they can be able to augment the other sectors. For instance, if you're talking about the Olympics and the Paralympics that's currently ongoing, you find out that tourism, hospitality, marketing as well has gone a long way to show that aspect is not just benefit the sports or the organizers, but also the people that are coming in to watch the sporting activities that will be taking place across boards. Then you have live stream. So there's live streaming, and then there's illegal live stream, which is where the main problem is in relation to sports broadcasting. If you follow sports related IP conversation, find out that the always comes up yearly IP in relation to sport broadcasting, even the betting, and hospitality and all of those things. So yeah, I guess that's my bit. I hope everyone is able to hear me. But if you have questions, I'll do my best to be available today. And thank you.
Thank you,
Right.
ma'am.
Thank you very much, Miss Rita. Okay, I think I'll be taking over from Mr. Godslove. He reached out that he may have to leave. I will just be carrying on with the rest of this session. So please, if Group 3 is ready, please can we have presentation from Group 3? Please, can we kindly note that presentations during sessions are very essential, and it's a core part of the program. So please, if you are in group 3 and you are here on call, please, we would like for you to make presentation. I would volunteer to share screen on your behalf so that we can move on with the session. So please, anyone from group 3, you can kindly step in on behalf of your group and make presentation. Okay, it seems we don't have any representative from group 3 on call. And I would like to think it's a mistake from their end, or they are not just generally in class. So not to just waste any time waiting for their presentation, we would want to go back to the mentors, right? We kindly apologize on behalf of group 3 and group 4 for not being able to present in the session. Hopefully we do not have that experience, right? So please, over back to our mentors. We would just like to hear more from you as regards the class, as regards the subject matter for today, sports business and law. Then before we go to our question and answer session. So back to okay. I can see one of our mentors with us here on call right now. That's Miss Navana Talk. Thank you so much, Ma, for joining. We're happy to have you in our midst. So we'll be taking presentation from Ms. Navana, and then we'll want to hear also from our other mentors if they have anything further that they would like to add as regards to today's class. So Ms. Navana Tor, if you are with us, please, you're welcome, Ma. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi.
I'm very fine, Ma.
Did you hear me? Yeah. Nice to meet
Yes,
you.
Ma.
Yeah.
Same here. You're welcome, Ma. So please, Ma, you're welcome. Please, we'd like to hear from you on your insights for today's topic, sports business and law.
Yeah. Look, our topic today is very interesting. I'm very interested in business because I already study business and business law. Because I think business is very important in our life. It's related to everything: intellectual property, innovation, creativity, even in our personal life. Have a big effects and aspects on our life as a whole. So we should be all the time update about business, about strategy, about the update of technology applied in our life and our era worldwide. And this is easy to follow these days because we have social media, LinkedIn, all of these platform help us and guide us to use the best way to follow this business. Concerning our topic, the intellectual property, the comedy, the movie, the art, all of this, and previous project concerning comedy, how to say, comedy scenario. It was me with my friends because, as you know, and I will send you after that link concerning the Egyptian comedian, well-known artists. We have an opera since King Farouk. It was let's say 1854 or maybe before. We have many how to say singers sang the white, the black and white, before the colors. So the art, the architecture also in mosque, in how to say, in Église, the church, in many palace all over Egypt, represent this architecture and this IP protection that should be, because should be taken or take action in this, because IP, it wasn't known before. So most of the people or the countries that they doesn't know, or the awareness of protect this art, even songs, even movie, even sketch, all of this. I have a previous scenario, comedy scenario, because I like the comedian there is a lot here, and I really enjoy to follow up this comedian, because comedian need intelligence. It's not easy to make people laugh, but it's so easy to provide them negative energy, or tell them a bad story, something to make them sad, or unhappy, or this is easy. But what is not easy is to make people happy. This is not easy at all. It needs intelligence, smart people, because you have to think a lot to change the mood and of the person, and make it negative, positive attitude and energy. So we have, during faculty, we have to prepare a comedian scenario. So it takes a long time from me and my colleagues, but at the end we realized to prepare this scenario and present it at the theater. Because also I attend many theater in the opera, like le ballet, how to say, the Casse-Noisette. There is many artistics and orchestra, Egyptian orchestra, and there is some Russian also ballet, and how to say, dances that I like it, and I following up since long time ago, and I'm continuing this. I like it. We have many activities in the opera also, not also the ballet, the dances, folklore, which is protected by the traditional knowledge culture. This is very important, because most of the old civilization in Africa, in Asia, in maybe South America, Latin America, they have traditional knowledge that should be protected. And these have a side, artistic side also. Like once I went for shopping in a big mall in Emirates, and I found a blouse, I like it. When I buy it, you buy it suddenly, but when you think about it, it was related to a project that I studied with WIPO, related to traditional knowledge. Really, I remember. And when I return back, I follow this design, which is very unique, with colors, among other shopping center or shopping magazine. But what I found, I'm actually surprised that it was stolen from a traditional knowledge community people in, I think, South America. And they, unfortunately, they didn't make any protection. They didn't aware about this, because it's need money, and all of this. And these people, they haven't the awareness, or the update, or the money, or the support needed to protect this traditional knowledge. But when there is a opportunity to discuss this, I discuss this with people, because it's very bad action from this well-known trademark or brand in the mall, which stolen the color, the design, which is very unique, very nice, from the traditional knowledge people. And after that, when I have many studies also with South African University, I know that it was repeated the same with another traditional knowledge culture related to a community in South Africa. And they found people here, or the community here, found that their tradition, they didn't mention what is the brand, but they ask for support from avocat and lawyers to support them in this big case. And I think they reported to the court, and it's taking action. Yani, they didn't finish this case, but it's still in the court, taking many actions, because there is support from the other side. They they pay money for the lawyers, I don't know, but for other people to defend against this committee, which has the total right to have even money. because they use their trademark or their tradition was in trademark, and they got licensing from and got a lot of money from this issue. So their right, their normal right and right to have sum of money, a percentage, big percentage for this. But until now, they didn't get anything. So it's not right. It's not logic, and it's illegal. From my point of view, it's very illegal, and not because these people they don't have enough money to support and aware or protect their knowledge, their tradition, their trademark, all of this. The result is to be stolen by big brand or well-known people, or sometimes pharmaceutical, also big pharmaceutical, companies in USA. Maybe they stolen the herbs in related to this community without giving them any licensing, any royalties, any money. No, this is not fair. It's not fair at all. They should have a big sum of money related to business, and this is the business here: licensing, franchising, royalty, and some related to the importance of the using of the herbs in pharmaceutical company, because they export this medicine worldwide and gain millions and billions of dollars from these herbs. So how to say, the fair thing, the minimum fair issues that should be taken action to give these people, this community, their rights, their protection of intellectual property of their herbs, because we have also herbs that was stolen before, but it was maybe during the colonialism and all of this. But after the awareness of IP, no, we should take care of our herbs, and Africa especially, and it's known among other people or other continents that is full of treasure, of copper, gold, all of this, and also of herbs. So many people know that Africa is known by their treasure of these herbs that will be used in pharmaceutical companies, and they will gain a lot of money, open business, exporting, importing, all of this. And where are our rights? Where are our protection? Where are our intellectual property for business? We should be part of this business and these benefits. So we this webinar and other workshop and other business community, even in UAE, we should discuss, all of us, about this and be aware and present this, with examples. And what I like really in studies with WIPO, some studies with WIPO, they give examples even in the exam, the assessment. There are many cases like this in assessment, and you have to resolve it. What is your opinion? How to protect it as an African first, and then as the Egyptian second? How to resolve this? Because it's happened with my country also, and I know it's happened a lot with African countries, and it will continue. It will not be stopped until we take action. We were supported by lawyers. Lawyers should support us free in the beginning until we get our money and our rights. Until I get my right, I can pay for the lawyer. So we should have an association of advocates and lawyers to support us in this, because the benefits will return back to all of us. And this is the logic, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. I think Mr. Dennis went out. But if the mentors were okay with it, I had a few questions for anyone that might be available to answer.
Okay, Imabang, you can carry on here.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Marks. So my first question was actually like directed towards you. I wanted to know if you thought that all of the procedure and regulations that create the framework for dispute resolution in sports, and then additionally commercialization and monetization, if these like extraneous aspects kind of drown out the ability of the players to like enjoy their genuine passion.
Yeah, I mean that's a very relevant question, and it's something that if you listen to athletes, you kind of hear that chatter on the ground. So there was this there was once a tweet put out, I believe was by what's his name now, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, asking a question why FIFA, I think what was that video game, FIFA 24, was able to get rights to use his image and all without anybody speaking to him and getting his consent. And only for him to realize that there's an association, as it were, called FIFPro, where all professional footballers supposedly belong to, and that on their behalf, FIFPro licenses their IP rights and all of that. But what you draw from all of that is that increasingly athletes, are now more focused on commercialization and some of these things. And sometimes, yes, it becomes, it takes more of the limelight than their real passion. But then again, if you listen to athletes who have retired, you'd understand that it's not really a bad idea, because when athletes retire, particularly in this part of the world where nobody's already, available to take care of them, then they look back at their playing days and then they regret why they were not, they just follow their passion and forgot to make as much money on the way as they would need for their retirement. So it's kind of a balance, but then it's the kind of world we live in that increasingly sometimes the best or the most successful, let me use the word successful, athlete might not necessarily be the most talented, the most passionate, but really the person who is able to marry business sense with his passion. I think that combination is what every athlete needs. Marry and it's why you see that, the athletes in developed countries seem to do better post-retirement than in this part of the world, because there they ensure that their schooling and all is not impacted by their athletic or by their sports careers, and they make sure they keep learning, understanding that, look, you have a limited period of time, maximum when you are 40, your sports career is over, and then you have so many more years to live, so that they need to be wise about investment, understanding how to do your deals, get all the best possible commercialization and monetization you can while you are still in your prime. So yes, it can be a drawback, but I don't think it's a negative drawback. It's a reality that athletes have to face, because otherwise, I mean, athletes are not civil servants. They do not have a pension waiting for them, on the other end of the divide. Some countries have been a lot smarter about it and have started to, create social safety nets for athletes. So I think South Africa did something with the funds they were able to raise from, some of the commercialization they do for their sports teams, to ensure that the athletes have some sort of a pension-like structure they can fall back on when they retire. So yeah, so the perfect approach would be for sports administrators to work together, with the sportsmen, to ensure that some of these things don't become too much of a drawback. Because ultimately, you get to a point where the whole essence of sports, the passion, the enjoyment, and all is no longer there. It just becomes too much of a commercial and a monetized thing. So it behoves on sports administrators to come together with sports people to agree on how best to just ensure they can safeguard their future when they retire, from their endeavors. Because unlike other endeavors, you become richer the older you grow, but with sports, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
You certainly become poorer the older you grow.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Max. Mr. Max, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Imabom. Sorry, I was logged out of the session. I didn't even know. So sorry about that. Okay. So while we were while Ms. Navana was on, I reached out to members of Group 4 and they made mention of how they will be, or they are ready for presentation, or they will be able to present in class. So please, for Group 4, if your presenter is on the call, kindly do also share your screen and start your presentation, and we'll move on with the rest of class. I think the question and answer has officially started. So after the presentation, and we have a little feedback from the mentors, then we'll go back to the questions and answers. Thank you very much. Group 4 presenter, are you with us? Please, can someone confirm that they can hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
I can hear
All
you,
right.
sir.
For some reason, I don't know why the both groups are seem to have a peculiar issue and around the presentation. So sorry about that.
Good evening,
On
Mr.
behalf
Dennis. My apologies.
Okay.
I'll be presenting for Group 4, please.
All right. Okay. Thank you so
Having
much.
difficulty sharing my screen, so the group leader, Okikiola, will share the screen right now. Apologies
All
for
right.
the
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to appreciate our mentors for the teaching thus far. As our topic says for today, sports business and intellectual property, basically the interrelation of sports and law. So I would like to briefly say that the intersection of sports, business, and intellectual property represents a dynamic, multifaceted domain where various disciplines converge to shape modern sports industry. Basically, as the society is growing in terms of sports being acknowledged and welcome, even in the third world country, that's how our law is growing to protect the rights and the obligations of both the players, the athletes, managers, agents, and the lawyers in same to translate to fee for each party. So it's a very broad spectrum. Legal expertise in this field basically deals with the various issues when it comes to the contract disputes, the labor relations, the regulatory compliance, even ethical considerations that help in shaping the governance of sport organizations. So our group went ahead to do a research on the legal implications of technology and sports as it arises in our time. So we have the issue of privacy, safety, fair competition. Privacy in the sense that there are some wearable devices that athletes wear that helps to track their health, basically are smartwatches. When you're running, your fitness track app and all that, if breached, your data can be exposed. And for an athlete or a sports personnel, it might be an issue for you. Then when it comes to fair competition, technology advancements can uneven playing fields where some athletes or teams have access to superior technology or coaching, while some, like in our third world country, we do not have some of those exposures for technology. So those are some issues that are rising in our current day and age for sports. So we went ahead to address some concerns concerning sports organizations and manufacturers. So for one, you have to implement. Now, I would limit it to Nigeria for most of us that are on the call that are Nigerians. In Nigeria, we have to implement robust data protection policy and transparent measures. Okay, I believe Okikiola is trying to share his screen now. 1 minute, please. Any law? Okay, I'll continue while she's still trying to get to that. So our next point here says conduct rigorous safety testing and certification processes to minimize physical risks. I'm sure we all noticed on Twitter and online this last Olympic, the boxing match between two supposed female players, and one was knocked out 45 seconds into the game. If proper safety tests and rigorous certifications were run on both persons, they would have recognized the biological anomalies to help cushion or help stop that unforeseen circumstance that happened. Then also we have another point here, okay, thank you. Please go to page 4. Thank you very much. Establish clear regulations and guidelines for technological innovations in sports to ensure fair competition and sportsmanship. This is very important, but in the sports field. Next slide, please. Okay, so the governance and business practice. Sorry, you're going faster than thank you very much. Yes. So now this comes to antitrust and competition law. So there are different agencies. We have the NBA, the NFL, the NBL, and they've set out different laws, rules, and regulations which governs professional sports leagues. So we have legal governance here. This league operates as partnership amongst team owners, creating a balance between competition on the field and cooperation off the field. This includes managing the salary caps, the broadcasting, and what have you. So this league governance now, it helps both the agents, the lawyers, the managers, and the athletes to help create their own contracts to avoid someone being cheated. We have athletes that come out and tell you that they are earning very little pay and most pay goes to the party or goes to the manager. But with this league standard or with this league governance, there's a particular fee you're to pay your athletes. And there's a particular threshold you can't go below. You understand? I hope we're following. I hope everyone can hear me, please.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very
Yes, we
much.
can.
So for team relocation, there are laws that also state that players have to stay with you for a particular time of year before you relocate them or before you transfer them. So these laws have to be followed through, else there's some penalties that will be attached to same. So you have relocating teams can be a contentious issue under antitrust laws, particularly when leagues restrict moves to protect existing markets. So when you relocate a player before the end of his contract, or even if a player terminates his contract and relocates before his timeline, there are going to be some consequences. So the third one, next slide, please. We have ownership of franchise. Yes, thank you. So leagues often have strict ownership. This is to help persons to restrict monopolization of the business. Sports is a very big and wide business. So franchising it opens room for job creation in different states or in different cities. And also it helps reduce monopolization. So leagues often have strict ownership rules, such as prohibiting corporate ownership or limiting ownership structures to maintain stability, integrity. However, these restrictions can be viewed as anti-competitive if they limit potential owners and do not serve competition interests, potentially breaching antitrust rules. So franchising can both be a pro and a con. Yes, it opens up the business, it helps to cushion monopolization, and it gives room for job creation. However, when it is overly restricted, potential owners or investors might pull out their funds. So the regulation on monopolistic practice is so important. As such, professional leagues involves several key issues. So you have market dominance, revenue sharing, broadcast rights, player collusion. Next slide, please. Next one. Okay, perfect. So sport laws play a crucial role in governing and regulating aspects of sports activities in Nigeria. This is bringing it home from athlete contracts to doping regulations. This branch of law ensures fair play and protects the athlete's rights. So you have organizations and you have laws. You have like the National Sports Commission, you have the Ministry of Youth and Development, you have anti-doping regulations. All these laws, they help to govern our sporting activities, not just limiting it to football, but also sports at large. Next slide. Some other regulations in place include match fixing and prevention, sports betting, as Miss Rita was talking about. You have player and staff betting restrictions, integrity monitoring, consumer protection, concussion protocols, safety equipment standard, playing surface, and so on and so forth. The next slide. Now we're going to go to dispute resolution. So where there's a contract, conflict, or even in communications with two persons, conflict can always arise while negotiating your contract, or after negotiating your contract, or after even executing the contract. So in sports business, as our first mentor spoke about, Ms. Chiamaka, it is usually advisable to go through the resolution route, the dispute resolution route, alternative dispute resolution route, rather than going headlong to the courts. So alternative dispute resolution is the means of seeking resolution to a conflict or a dispute between two parties or more that can be quasi-judicial but binding. So you have mediation, you have arbitration. Mediation basically is when both parties invite a third party to come and facilitate their negotiation. Both parties, they lay out their complaints, lay out their points, lay out their arguments, and the mediator helps them balance it out. And mediation basically is a win-win situation. You win some, you lose some. You take some points, I take some points, and we carry on with our business without having bad blood. While arbitration goes further to be more quasi-judicial, as the award is binding on both parties and it can be registered or entered into as a consent judgment. So it's a more formal process of resolving your dispute with an arbitrator or a panel of arbitrators. And as Ms. Chiamaka mentioned earlier, we have the Court of Arbitration, which can be a court of first instance if the parties don't go to the FIFA tribunal, which is an international body and has international jurisdiction. So you also have sports litigation. Now, what's sports litigation? This is a court-based method of resolving disputes in the sports industry. So now you're actually going to court to lay out your complaints, your arguments, your written arguments, preparing your documents, and sending in all evidence that is relevant to your case. Yes, so we have examples of some. So there are types of sports litigation. Next slide, please. You have contractual disputes, labor disputes, regulatory disputes, intellectual property disputes, and torts claim. And these are quite easy. Contractual disputes deals with the agreement, while labor disputes, it's probably because of no pay or improper pay. Regulatory disputes, basically, it deals with when either the club, the team, or the athlete is not sticking to regulations or rules like anti-doping rules that are stated. And intellectual property dispute, this will come where Mr. Marx spoke about what's the term? Ambush marketing. So when you're passing off someone else's trademark as yours and you're exploiting it, so that comes up. Then tort claims comes in terms of injury and what have you. And as most of the lawyers on the call know, your litigation process, you have to file a complaint, there'll be pre-trial proceedings, then the trial proper, judgment, appeals, enforcement of judgment, and what have you. Next slide, please. So now we have case studies on sports litigation. So matters that have gone to court and are for reference. So you have Carter and all against NCAA. So this case marks a significant challenge to the NCAA restriction on athletes' compensation, building on the precedent set by Alston and NCAA, where the Supreme Court ruled that the restrictions on education-related benefits violated antitrust law. Carter seeks to nullify, all restrictions on compensation that NCAA member schools can provide to athletes. The plaintiffs argued that these restrictions act as a price ceiling, preventing athletes from earning fair market value for their services. This case is being closely watched as it potentially dismantle the long-standing amateurism model in college sports. So, next slide, please. So now this last slide basically speaks on career options in sports law and business. So you have sports management, you have sport law firms, you have sports marketing agencies, you have governing bodies, regulatory compliance, intellectual property law. So some of us on this call, we might want to say, why sports? Will I actually make money? This now opens up our mind to the different ways or the different branches of sports law or business in sports that we can kick off after now. So in conclusion, I like to say that the intersection of sports, business, intellectual property, and law encompasses a multifaceted dynamic field, presenting various legal implications, challenges, and opportunities. Technological innovations raise concerns about privacy, safety, and fair competition, while antitrust and competition issues impact legal governance and team operations. Regulatory compliance and governance are crucial in ensuring adherence to doping regulations, gambling laws, and player safety standards. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Tonye, for stepping up to present on behalf of your group, and well done to Group 4 for still coming up with your presentation. I had a little talk with a few members of the group, and I noticed that it was a submission error on their end. That's why I didn't announce that they were the ones to present. So moving forward, I want to apologize for all the issues that we've had so far. That is from the network issues to the presentation issues. And I think we are right back on track for us to have the rest of the session. But then while Group 4 was presenting, I noticed we had another mentor who joined in on the call, Mr. Polarinwa Aluko. So thank you so much, sir, for joining in. So moving forward, while we take feedbacks from the mentors on the call, we would like to hear from Mr. Polarin. Let him just give us I think a 10-15 minutes talk on the topic, as well as his feedback concerning the subject matter for today, the feedback on the presentation, and then we'll hear a little feedback from the mentors on the call, and then we'll move back to the questions and answers. So Mr. Polarinwa, thank you so much for joining once again. Please, sir, the floor is yours for your presentation, and then your presentation, and then your feedback on the presentation. Hello, sir.
I joined earlier.
Oh,
can you hear
okay.
Me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, I was saying I joined earlier, but I think the want to change the name of the user. So I mean, fantastic conversation. Actually, well done to everyone.
Sorry, sir, your volume is not so high. It's quite low. Your voice is quite low.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes, sir, it's much better now.
Okay, so I was commending the presentations thus far, and saying well done. I think my contribution will center around an interesting case that I think touches on one of the most important aspects of how, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I was saying that there's an interesting case that I think captures I saw something about in the, I think it was Group 4's presentation. I saw something on competition law, unfair practices, and it reminded me about this multi-choice case that is framed around an abuse of dominance, like a dominant position. It's unfair competition. It's Metro Digital Limited against MultiChoice and two others. And the case really centers around the exclusive broadcast license that MultiChoice has. This other company is trying to get a compulsory license or trying to get MultiChoice to issue a sub-license for so that the company Metro Digital can broadcast. I think it's the Premiership or one of the leagues. So I think that's an area that is quite interesting, and that touches on the most dominant sport in Nigeria, that's football. So I think there's a lot to be said about how players or how parties or players in the sporting industry, in this case, of course, MultiChoice is not a sporting company, they're in the entertainment or broadcast industry, but how parties in the sports industry use, their positioning to deal whether fairly or unfairly. And I think that point was highlighted in the last presentation. There were comments made about competition law, anti-competitive behavior. Generally speaking, I think our sports industry, the sports sector in Nigeria is where it is because of over-reliance on government. Intellectual property is private in nature, and sports intellectual property is a huge part of sports law. Although, of course, sports law incorporates contracts, so many other areas, employment law, labor law, etc. But I think over-reliance on government intervention has also blinded the attention of the private sector to the opportunities that abound in sports. And I think those are conversations that we should have going forward. So those are my thoughts. I know a lot has already been said, so I wouldn't keep us on the call any longer than I have to. But yeah, so I would say two areas that I would like to highlight that I think we should pay attention to are competition in the sporting industry. So the use of a dominant position to within the industry, how players use either their intellectual property or a dominant market position. And I referenced the Metro Digital against MultiChoice case. And then secondly, I think the issue of sports financing. I think in Nigeria, as long as we rely on government, we're not going to get the sports industry right. So it is all over the world. Sports is funded by the private sector. So somewhere, somehow, the creators and sporting talent, creators in the sporting industry and sporting talent have to make a viable case for the private sector to get involved. And you see in places where the private sector has gotten involved, you see a lot of significant improvement. Of course, until politics is brought in. I think there are some leagues in Lagos, the there was there was this beach soccer league or so, but areas where you see the private sector gets involved, you see some development. So yeah, so those are two areas that I'd like to highlight on the subject matter. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Sorry for joining a little late.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I'm sorry we did not notice that you were on call. Our sincere apologies. So I think we'll be going back to the mentors, right? And then to the other mentors to take their feedback and more like a final statement as regards the class for today. So I think we'll be heading straight to Ms. Chiamaka. Please, Ma, if you're with us, we would like to still hear from you on your take on the presentation and also like a final statement as regards today's class.
Thank you very much. Is that Dennis?
Yes, Ma.
Okay. So I think that it was group 4, yeah?
Yes, Ma.
Okay. So it was generally a good presentation. At least they touched on the important aspects of sports law and business and dispute resolution and I wrote a few things down. Match fixing, confusion protocols and things, and even highlighting the career path. Okay, so I think it was generally a well-researched presentation. So yeah, kudos to the group. I'm still here if anybody has any questions to ask from both your presentation and mine. I'll be here to answer. So,
Right.
yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Chiamaka. Well done to the group members once again, from Ms. Chiamaka to everyone. So, so please, we'll be moving on to Mr. Max Ikombe. Mr. Max, are you still with us, sir?
Okay. Yes, I am.
Yes, sir. So please, we just want to get a little feedback from you on the presentation and also a closing statement as tied to today's topic.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I listened to the presentation and I was quite happy with the layout particularly, and the fact that the presentation really dwelt on not just purely on the IP issues, but also looked closely at the underlying industry issues, because that's another point we can never make enough of. That as an IP professional or consultant, if you do not properly understand the underlying industry issues and the business model of your clients, then it is likely going to be impossible you will be able to advise them appropriately. I mean, having IP knowledge is great, but if you want to be a consultant to industry or to business, then you must also understand clearly the underlying industry issues. You must understand the business models and their revenue model, because you are essentially designing an IP model to do two things. Number one, to help them protect their revenue, that's to keep out infringers and third parties, which is the traditional role. But now the more important and the more progressive role is how to use IP as a tool to increase income and revenue. So until you understand their business models and all, you will not understand how IP can come in handy. So, I mean, take a traditional advisor, for instance, to a sports club. I've given that example and I won't stop giving it. The traditional advice would be, from an IP point of view, things like broadcast right to extend and all of that. But that's also to a large extent brings in revenue, but also to a large extent also conserving third parties from pirating those sports events and taking revenue out. But by the time you begin to go on to merchandising, Rita spoke, for instance, about the fact that hospitality as you know, you no longer separate hospitality and other recreational endeavors from sports events. So, I mean, for people who go to the UK, for instance, I mean, in Nigeria, typical Nigerian goes to the UK if he's in London, he's likely to visit maybe Stamford Bridge or visit Emirates Stadium. So you can see that beyond the sports event, the cost of visiting, buying merchandise in their shop and all becomes new revenue streams for those sports establishments. But that takes a professional who goes beyond the traditional model of advice of saying to help protect you against third parties infringing, to now saying, how can we use your IP to make new streams of income? And I mean, just in case anybody here is in an in-house role or is looking forward to getting into an in-house role. Now, what we typically hear from in-house lawyers is that the legal department in organizations is always viewed as a cost center. The cost center means that the organization only believes that every time legal is coming to ask for money to pay lawyers to do a case, or coming to ask for money to register a trademark and all that they're always creating costs for the business, never bringing in income, or like marketing department that is bringing in revenue and all of that. But increasingly, an understanding of the second approach I just mentioned would make you, as an in-house lawyer, to no longer be a cost center manager, but to actually become a manager of revenue generating arm of the corporation. So this is, just by way of advice as well, that we must always look at IP from that one. I'm commending the group as well, because I saw that they really took their time to, elaborate on the actual industry issues, not just stay focused only on the IP, because it's when you understand the industry, you understand IP, and then you marry IP to the industry. But the controlling factor is really the industry knowledge, the business model knowledge, controls even the, how you apply IP knowledge. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Marks. All right, so moving to our next mentor, Ms. Rita, if you're still with us, we want to also hear from you, your feedback on the presentation, and also any final thoughts as regards to the subject matter. Okay, I think Ms. Rita is no longer with us. So please, can we have Ms. Navana talk? Yes, ma. Please, ma, we just want to hear a little feedback from you, and if you have any additional statements or things you would like for us to just generally know as we wrap up today's session. Ms. Navana, are you with us? Okay.
Yes.
All right, Ma. Welcome back. Please, I was asking, Ma, do you have any feedback on the presentation? And also, do you have any final thoughts that you have for us as regarding the topic for today?
Concerning which subject, please?
Sports business and law.
Yeah, smart business and law is very important. I'm just talking about the business and the effect of business in intellectual property and innovation and creativity is very important to apply the update and technologies of and aspects of technology in the intellectual property world. This relation concerning how to apply the updated, for example, the blockchain, how to apply the blockchain in copyright contracts is very important, and some countries already applied abroad in UE, in some multinational companies. They apply the blockchain because it's more effective, more efficient, but it needs training from employees and the company itself to know how to use it. But when they know how to use it, it will be more usable and more protected also than the normal contracts. This is the legal field is very important to know how to apply the blockchain. And from my side, lately I attend a big workshop concerning blockchain. It was for 3 days and conference concerning blockchain and how to apply it, to understand first what is blockchain, and then how to apply and use it in contract, especially with copyright and related rights. Because copyright and related rights is not, it's not the same system like trademarks, patent, trade secret, GI, and these designs and all this. So they need special protection. So maybe the use of blockchain will make it more protected, more safe to use it, and it encourages people and countries and maybe clients in a company, in a law firm, to protect their copyright, because they don't have the awareness. And some countries, as you know, they don't have a registration system for copyright and related rights. Just published, it's protected. It's just a paper or any other way of advertisement is protected, but there is no system like a trademark and patents and other IP fields. So blockchain is very important from my point of view. This is the new era and new technology to apply it in copyright and related rights, and this is very important for business. It will gain more benefits, more profits for the country, for the company. We use this. It will open new markets for us to facilitate the how to say the legal discussion and legal documents to be transferred through blockchain. So it will be more safe and more fast also to use it, because it's also there is a lot of passcodes. It's not one; there is a lot during the process of blockchain. So it's very, very safe. So this is very important in the business law and the legal side. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Navana. All right, so now we'll be going over to question and answers, right? And please, if you have a question, you can kindly indicate by raise of hand. You can send your question to the chat box. You can also send an emoji. Okay, I can see Malpong has a question. Please, you can go ahead and ask.
Okay, good evening. Thank you. So I had a question towards Ms. Chiamaka. There was a Nigerian case called Amarachi versus Heartland Football Club. And in this case, the plaintiff took the issue to the National Industrial Court, but the defendant said that he was supposed to have taken it to the NFF arbitration panel. And then the plaintiff responded that the arbitration panel is like incompetent, so why would I take my action there? I wanted to ask if you had like any opinions on the efficiency of Nigerian frameworks and setups for dispute resolution in sports currently.
Okay. So the sorry, you were saying, do I have what? An opinion on what?
Yeah, on the efficiency of like Nigerian mechanisms for dispute resolution in sports.
Okay, so I know that they set up what they call an arbitration committee.
Yeah.
Where players and maybe agents can bring in their cases. They don't sit very often, and there was a time we had a dispute. The client had a dispute, and we were trying to get them to sit and hear that dispute, but they weren't sitting at that time, so we had to go to the National Industrial Court. So I think that, and then before we went to the court, we had written to FIFA to say, is there a compulsion for a member association to set up a dispute resolution body, or in the absence of it, you can. So they were like, if there's none set up, you can go to regular courts. There's no problem with that. So I know that now people still take their cases to industrial courts, and still some cases go to that NFF dispute resolution committee. But for the lawyers practicing in that sector, we are hoping that, they will collaborate with the arbitration body in Nigeria and set up like a standard arbitration body, like the way the FIFA one is run and set up, as against just using maybe in-house staff and lawyers working in NFF as the panelist or the tribunal. So yes, that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you so much, Imal Bong, and thank you, Ms. Chiamaka, for helping out with that question. So please, we're still taking questions, but I think I have a question, right? And just drawing up on what some mentors have said so far, Mr. Polarin, in his own statement while he was talking, spoke about the need for privatization, more privatization, saying that in the sports industry in Nigeria is largely reliant on governments, right? But then looking at some activities within the sporting industry in Nigeria, for instance, the NFL, the Nigerian Premier League, we see some clubs being owned by private individuals. For instance, Infa Uba, right? I think he owns a club of such, and then we see clubs also like Mountain of Fire, right? How does that work? How does the privatization of clubs in Nigeria works? Is it what is the process like? Is it what are like the registration processes like? How does an individual get to own or host a sporting event in Nigeria? And I'll be throwing this question out to, I think I'll start with Ms. Chiamaka, and Mr. Marks, if you have any contribution, I would also like to hear from you, sir. Ms. Chiamaka, please, I'm handing over the question firstly to you. How is the privatization of sporting clubs in Nigeria like? For instance, the likes of Ifeanyi Uba and then Mountain of Fire. Is there particular processes? What do they have to do? Because I know most clubs in Nigeria are state-owned. So what is it like around the sporting ministry in Nigeria in terms of private individuals planning to own clubs and also the business frame around that environment? Okay. Mr. Marks, are you with us, sir? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So, Mr. Marks, okay. Yes, I can hear you now, sir. Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay, so I got a question about how privatization of sports clubs work in Nigeria, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, well, I would say I'm not too familiar with the topic of how privatization of sports clubs work in Nigeria. I'll just say a few general things about because I get your questions flowing from what Mr. Polan said about the need to have more private sector ownership and participation in the sports industry in Nigeria, because we unfortunately seem to have a sports industry that is tied almost exclusively to the government's apron strings. Even our national teams, for instance, do not self-sponsor themselves. They depend on government. So, for instance, I'll use the example of the U.S. Olympic Committee. The U.S. Olympic Committee is not funded by the U.S. government. It gets all its funding from its own commercial activity. For instance, the issue of ambush marketing I mentioned about. So it gets its sponsorship from, it gets its funding, from third parties who it signs sponsorship deals with, and other channels are essentially private, not government controlled. Of course, the reason for that is not perfect. When the governments control sporting events, then those sporting events or those sports outfits, become subject to a lot of political control and all of that, which is, anybody who has followed never-ending dispute between Nigeria and FIFA. Part of that dispute is always that by the FIFA statutes, the football federations in every country should be run independently and determine their own leadership. But because the governments are the ones who fund them, governments will tell you we can remove the head of the NFF at any time we want, once we feel it's no longer doing what it should be, there's allegation of bribery. So whenever that happens, of course, FIFA will always step in and say, no, the football federation is independent and should determine its own leadership. It shouldn't be imposed by government. So there's always that back and forth about FIFA, blacklisting Nigeria, and then you see everybody runs back and forth. They withdraw the cases from court. They give us some time. After a while again, we are back to court with them again. So it's always back and forth. So just long and short, the need for private sector participation is important. I'm not too familiar with the actual details of how the private ownership of sports clubs like football clubs work, but I know it's always been there. I mean, the head of Ohanes Indigo, who just died, Inwanyanwu, for instance, used to have a very popular football club then, Inwanyanwu National, a long time ago. I mean, Chiamaka will tell us about them. I don't know where they are on Nigerian League pyramid anymore, but I'm sure they're relegated somewhere far down there. But it tells you that even our private run sports clubs are still not run as they should be, and that is why we do not have that continuity with them as well. So maybe Chiamaka will give us some more details as to private ownership of sports clubs. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Marks. Right, and I personally think it's a severe issue that we have in Nigeria with ownership privatization. Okay. Okay, I can see Mr. Polarin saying clubs are owned by individuals or company. My comment was to the effect that government's involvement in the operation, of the various league is where, okay. Thank you so much, sir, for that correction. So I still believe that that the intersection between governments and football and just generally sports in Nigeria is still a very, very serious issue. Recently, I think it was said that that Nigeria got a new coach for the national team, and then the coach the coach eventually left he resigned, or he turned down the offer because he had there was some involvements from some politicians who were saying that he had to give them out of, or pay them out of his salary. So I feel there should be more privatization within our sports industry in the country. The involvement of governments in that space has, I think, very much limited the growth and development of sports. So please, do we have more questions for our mentors so that we can head on with that? Or Mr. Polarin, do you have anything you would like to add as regards that matter?
Yeah, I would just say that, I mean, great stuff. I would say that sports is competitive in nature, and the objective of anybody who participates in sporting activities is to win, because sports are competitive. There's no sport that is not competitive, except maybe what's it called? Ring around the roses. All sports are competitive by nature. And the problem now is that when you introduce the government factor, government's interest, or let me not say government, let's say it's more of once the objective is no longer winning, once private interests or alternative interests come into the picture, then it becomes a problem. There are private sector individuals who participate, but the participation is not necessarily, I mean, the level of participation in terms of the ownership of the club is one thing, but where you have somebody else who pulls the strings, particularly a government or a political actor. For example, you see situations where the minister of I was reading which of the Nigerian coaches gave an interview some weeks ago and was saying how or I think he made a post on social media. Was it Westerhoff or one of the coaches? And he was telling a story of how a minister, sent word that he should swap players in the middle of a game. Can you just imagine that? The Minister of Sports who was, attending the game. That is ridiculous. But that is the kind of situation we find ourselves in. We find ourselves in a situation where the Minister of Sports, the entourage that this minister's entourage will be larger than the number of sportsmen and women who are attending the competition. So once and immediately the objective is no longer merit. Once people are not chosen by merit, that system will collapse because it will not attract the best. And then the sponsorship, because the private sector votes with its pockets. So you would not see, nobody will spend money sponsoring a team that consists of maybe the brother to the minister or the friend to the sister of the uncle of somebody somewhere. I think the chess federation is a case in point of deliberate actions by individuals. I know one or two people who made deliberate efforts to get involved in the chess federation, and some change to some degree has been effected. Not much, but some change has been effected. And so I think sports is one area that politics should not play a role at all. And I think government's intervention or control over that space should be reduced. Look at NFF. NFF is the Nigerian Football Federation, for example. It's very interesting. Football associations or groups are organized into federations. So they changed their name to NFF, but the NFF, the NFA, the association, is a creation of statutes. So they changed their name on paper, but in the law still recognizes them as NFA. And once a law creates a body, that body must be attached. It becomes a government institution, so it must be attached somewhere. It must be subsumed under a ministry. It becomes either an agency or a department or something. And then you have, all the politics and all that jazz that comes along with it. So yeah, that's my. There has to be, and people have to start speaking up, because if we keep quiet, we would end up having situations where Nigerian athletes will leave Nigeria and then start to represent. Of course, it's happening, but we'll continue to have that situation where our best and brightest will leave the country and fly other colors and represent other countries, and then we just have what's it called? Yeah, yes, there's a lot of that happening in basketball. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thank you so much, Mr. Folarin. So if we don't have any more questions, or do we still have questions from mentees in the group? Do we have more questions? Please, you can go ahead and ask questions. We'll be taking maybe a question or two before we round up this session. Do we have any person with a particular question that you would like to ask? Ms. Chiamaka is saying FIFA encourages independence, but since we still need government's money, they get to be involved. Yeah, I think. But Ma, what do you think is how do we push for? How do we push for advocacy for us to now have more private individuals willing to put money in the Nigerian space, in the Nigerian sports space?
Well, I think that Mr. Folarin has touched on it. Now, at least in the league, I know that there is a bit of the administrators and regulators are still some. So there's a bit of administration and governance issues that are holding us back, because as it is now, even if all the clubs, let's say for whatever reason, they privatize all the clubs, sell them off into individual hands. If those clubs cannot now come together to form administration and governance and have it run independently, then it's still running around in circles and still coming back to the same place. Because now the reason people can't invest as much as they would want, or as even stakeholders would like in sports, is because of government interference. If there's an issue, maybe transfer of players has not happened well, or if there's any issue, and then those people can just sit over the table where they are lounging and just say, oh, that my boy, leave it now, we will settle it later. Or maybe something about the league is starting and they are supposed to give money to all the clubs, and then they will just call them to say, oh, the money is not ready yet because of so and so. You both should just start, or give out the monies later. So there is still an issue with governance and administration, and I think that's what is still keeping the sports sector here where it is at the moment, that it cannot expand and become what everybody is, because sports has been listed as a business, at least from the previous administration. But how much of it has still gone out of the hands of government? Like I said, because government money is still needed. Okay, athletes are going to the Olympics. They need money. Government has to release the money, and government is releasing the money late because government is bureaucratic. So it affects everything. So if even at that place of administration and governance, sorry, it's raining here. That's why it's a bit there's that noise in the background. Because of that government overseeing and interference and involvement. Because if we're going to how do they say that thing? Unveil what it is exactly. There's still government involvement and interference. So as much as people push it, that pushback is still there, and government is normally bureaucratic. So you can't move at the speed that you want to move. And then even there's the new sports industry policy. I don't think I heard it mentioned during the presentation, but that's a very important part as well, because under it, there is also an IP policy under it as well. The IP aspect of it. So it's important to know about that sports industry policy. The only thing that government is expected to oversee really is infrastructure. And then a bit of, because sports is already self-regulated. So it's not like, oh, we need government to regulate sports. Sports on its own, each sport, football is self-regulated, basketball is self-regulated, and then all these things can also it's just kind of copy and paste to your own environment. You don't need to go and redo those regulations, because practically they're expecting that everybody is growing and participating at almost that same level. So I don't know how government can entirely hands off it, because I know that in the last administration, there was something they said about, there was a 10-year plan of how to transition sports from the hands of government until it becomes completely independent. But of course, with the way a lot of things are. We don't really know. I don't think that plan was ever publicized or in public for people to even really know, okay, this is what year one is, this is what year two is, until maybe 10 years, So I don't know how it can be solved here and now, but I think over time, because even as there is the Nigerian Professional Football League, it doesn't, that, let's see, so, yes. Okay, so what I'm saying is, like what every other person has said, it's not even as if there is no infrastructure per se, but it's just maintenance, like the heavy lifting, where a lot of money is involved. Can government just maybe focus on that part while the private sector takes on other parts of the sports industry? And then also the part of incentivizing private organizations that take up sports, maybe giving them tax holidays and all that. Governments can be involved in that. But outside these two ones, governance and administration and these other things, can it be properly handled by, business people and people that have been involved in sports management and, administration, etc. So let me just stop there. I think that my answer has been a little bit longer than I should want. So, but does that help? Do you understand the perspective and the point?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
All right. So thank you so much Ms. Chiamaka, and also thank you to our mentors. And thank you everyone for staying to the end of class. I think it's safe for us to call it a night. Sorry for the little shoot in time. Hopefully we have a more time bound or a more time conscious class next week. I think we've come to the end of today's session. I hope to see everyone next week. Please kindly do well to post what you have learned, and also do well to tag your mentors so that you can show that you have learned from them. All right, and like Ms. Chiamaka once said or earlier said during her presentation, I encourage you all to kindly subscribe to watch the Nigerian Premier League. Right, do well to follow up with what's going on within the sports space in Nigeria, as much as you follow outside what happens outside the country. So good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. We look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.